right, hello everyone. My name is Philip Palumbo. I'm the host of the Palumbo podcast, where we interview founders of businesses to learn how they climb the ladder. Today we have with us Chad Price, who has 12 plus years as a seasoned entrepreneur in multiple businesses. We're looking forward to getting some insights and perspectives on what founders need to know. So, Chad, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me on.
All right. So Chad, big thing about being a founder of a business, as I am and you are as well, is is understanding a business and a certain level of fortitude that it takes. So tell us from your experience working with other founders, founder yourself, what it takes to become a founder.
Well, I mean, I think it's you come from, especially when you're talking about entrepreneurship, you can come your experiences and kind of what it takes can come from a various let's say sources, if you will. For me, my kind of background in sports and athletics, it really gave me a foundation for discipline and training and, getting better on a day-to-day basis, having practice and reviewing practice and trying to create processes that equal improvement. It kind of comes natural to an athlete. But I also think, it's other entrepreneurs that don't come from an athletic background, and you can take other experiences, whether that's your educational experiences or cultural, or, even your parents, may have certain philosophies that they have impaired on you. And so what I try to teach people is, how do you utilize your experiences in the best way for your entrepreneurship career? And it's really just looking at how you can become and utilize everything that's happened to you thus far as an experience versus, being kind of a victim mindset. I think an entrepreneur is a person that sees the opportunities more than they see, the potential risk of the world, if you will.
Right. Being a founder and entrepreneur, it's interesting. Yeah, it is a certain level, it's a certain mindset. I think if you're a negative person naturally, I think it would be difficult to be a founder versus someone who has more of a positive personality. What are your thoughts as it relates to that?
For sure. And I mean, I'm usually the person that feels like we can do anything, right? Like if you tell me we got to get to the moon, I'm like, okay, when do we start?
Right.
But I do realize that kind of you have to be realistic with your optimism as well. So I think there's a balance of having a realistic assessment of the world. And I think the entrepreneurs that do really well are the people that can find and kind of pull the reality towards their vision, towards their dream. And that does take a sense of optimism to think that you can steer the world, or you can create a brand from scratch and people, will love it and want to spend their money on it. So, I think it's a good thing to have that. And a lot of times I try to have maybe a more pessimistic person in my circle, in my network, that I can bounce my ideas off, just to make sure I'm calibrating myself correctly.
It's always good. So I said I have my negative crew that I go to with things, and just like you said, just make sure there's a balanced approach to everything. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're important to have around. So you played sports. What type of sport did you play? What was your main sport?
I played everything, yeah, literally everything under the sun. But I went to college and played at Rice University. I played football there. So
Where? Where?
at Rice University in Houston.
Oh, great. Yeah, yeah. And you played
Yep,
football.
football. Yep, strong safety.
All right. Good for you. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Super Bowl?
I mean, I'm excited about it. I feel like football's finally getting good again since COVID. It was a couple years I wasn't really feeling it so much, but I think things are coming back to normal. So I'm really excited about the Super Bowl, and I think this whole kind of season's been pretty good this year. So.
Who are you betting on to win the Super Bowl?
I don't really have a bet, to be honest. I'm one of those people that doesn't really have a team. I like whoever's trying the hardest, and I feel like, it's such a sports gives you that journey or that kind of new story every year. And so I really love that aspect of sports is,
Abs-
teams start from nothing and kind of build themselves up, and there's only one champion. So I really just like watching the journey.
Yeah, love it, love it. It all relates to business. I mean, there's exact parallels with everything.
Yeah.
So, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur?
I mean, I think there's quite a few things. When I was younger, I always saw myself as, let's say, going to be more than what I currently am. I think I have kind of that boy from a small town against the world attitude, where I've always kind of envisioned myself as preparing for something bigger. When I left to go to college in Houston, I knew that that was kind of the initial step of me becoming an adult and choosing my professional career. And regardless if I was going to be starting my own company, I knew I wanted to be a part of an operation that I ultimately respected and kind of fulfilled my own passions and desires to really kind of change the world and make the world a better place. So once I got into corporate America and realized like, okay, if I want to succeed in corporate America, I kind of have to play the game this way, and this is what's going to take, and this is the path. And I was really kind of I already set myself up for success there. It was kind of a no-brainer at that point that if I was going to try entrepreneurship, I needed to do it now. And I did
Yeah.
that when I was about 25, 26, and
Wow.
haven't looked back since.
Wow, good for you. That's really great. I mean, to have that mindset and do it at such a young age, that's the time to do it, which is excellent. So tell me about challenges that you faced along the way that has helped you.
So many. I mean, I think, challenges are part of the game. When you accept kind of ownership of a company or a brand organization, whatever that is, the every single problem becomes your problem. So I think I've gotten just used to that being kind of the task of the day. But if you're talking about from a startup phase, it's always, I think not knowing what you don't know, right? Like not knowing how to finance things, not knowing when to finance things. One of the things I tell people with my first company, well, I definitely should have gotten things financed a lot sooner. For the first 5 years, I was unable to pay myself, which most people cannot afford to do that. And
Right.
it worked out in the long run, but during those 5 years, it was just pretty hard. I was working multiple businesses, trying to, juggle cash flow and
Right.
just kind of make everything work. And you learn a lot during that process. You learn what not to do, and you learn what you can kind of get away with when times get tough. So to me, it's all part of the journey. And if I could change anything, it would just be kind of making these realizations a little bit sooner. So, realizing in year 2, I have something that I should invest in versus waiting till, year 3.5 or 4 before I actually pull the trigger on it. But, it's part of the process. You don't know what you don't know when you get into it.
Right. So having access to a line of credit, you're saying is important from the beginning?
Yeah, lines of credit and just more how you're going to finance something when it's time to scale. I think when we started, and I'll use Kettlebell Kings as an example. When we started Kettlebell Kings, we knew we had something. We knew we had let's say a brand and something that people were gravitating towards, but we knew that before the real cash flow started coming in, that was going to be, let's say, life changing. So, we're making, $100,000 a month, but that's not really going to change our lives. We need to scale that to, 5 million a year or 10 million a year, whatever that is. And when you've never done 5 million a year, you don't necessarily want to go out and get $1 million loan. That sounds intimidating to you. And you hope that, you just keep seeing more signals that make you feel comfortable with moving that direction. Well, now if I was consulting with a company and I saw a company moving in that direction, I'd be able to identify a lot sooner when they should pull the trigger on that. And I wouldn't need to hesitate and kind of be stuck in a place where I'm in fear of the possibilities of things not going my way. And I think you only really know that through experience. And so now I can quickly identify when I have a potential or an opportunity and move on it a lot and capitalize on it a lot faster.
Tell me about Kettlebell Kings. What was the business exactly?
So that business was, and I mean, I say was, it still is, and technically, it's still in the tail end of my consulting agreement and my APA with them. But the the basics of the company there was no real community based around that particular product, and that's what I really focus on. So even with my new consulting stuff and everything that I do, it's almost like fans first is kind of the new theme or the new philosophy that you'll see me saying quite a bit, where I'm trying to build a community and then I'm trying to source products for that community. So I noticed really quickly after I graduated from college, starting to trying to get into my own health and wellness routine, that the kettlebell was kind of an up and coming product, just from a knowledge and a marketing perspective. The product's been around obviously for thousands of years, but Rogue and CrossFit and these types of companies were making it a lot more popular, but there was no real underground company that specifically generated content or even products in that space. And so what Kettlebell Kings was supposed to be and what it still is a company that can kind of be the ESPN of the kettlebell world, but then also provide whatever products or services that community is interested in. So it's a more of a niche lifestyle community. And then we also provide the actual equipment itself, but you have digital products and competitions and certifications and different things like that. So it's really everything you can think of around a kind of a health and fitness company centered around a kettlebell.
So when you use the word community, which is really a great word, right? When you're in business. So you're talking about the community that would be around the product, the community you're building around the initial product that you launched, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and I look at it even maybe the product to me, it's easy if you have a product. So Kettlebell Kings, you know what the product is, you know the niche. But to me, the community is why do these people want to get together and associate themselves with one another? Why do they want to wear the logo? Why do they want to spend time on the website, absorb any of the content you're creating. So when I say like the ESPN of the kettlebell world, I really look at it kind of a content first and how do I generate content to create a community? So we realized quickly that you couldn't just pay for, someone to see a powder coat kettlebell ad and then someone would buy it. There was a long process of getting someone comfortable enough to make that purchase, and then at the very end of the content generation strategy, you finally make that sale, or you make the sales pitch to them at the very end. So building the community came a lot sooner than the actual sales did, and that's one of the things that I kind of mentioned earlier when I was saying like we realized we had success. We were building a community of people, getting leads, not even trying to pitch sales necessarily, and trying to just generate engagement and traffic and create something that the industry or this niche had never really seen, which was a central location to absorb information around this particular product. So whether it was who won some small kettlebell event in New York, or who won it in Puerto Rico, or some new kettlebell juggler in Brazil, it doesn't matter. Like, we're the central location where you absorb all the information around kettlebells, and starting that really is what built Kettlebell Kings to, let's say, the industry leader in that niche. Because if you want to know what's going on in the kettlebell world, you can always go there first. It's the most credible source of information.
Right. So two things as it relates to community that I want to know about, right? Number one is when you say you built a community, right? How did you do that specifically?
I think it's one of the good things, especially about kind of being young and naive when when we were doing that. I'm a lot more focused and have more philosophy on it now. But one of the good things when I started is I didn't really know much about kettlebells, and that journey of trying to discover what kettlebells are, who is the most credible coach, who is the most credible lifter, like literally trying to establish an alliance of credible individuals and almost a panel or a board of people that we would consider their information or their content credible. Going through that journey is what helped build the community. So we're literally trying to find every organization that throws kettlebell events around the world, and then who are the top coaches in those organizations, and then bring those coaches together and let's create a kettlebell together. Let's create collaborative content about how to do things together. It's all about trying to bring everyone together so we can create the most content. And then usually inside of these networks, there are people who have businesses as well. And right, we want to align ourselves with those businesses. So they're not just, we're not just using them to gain their credibility. We're actually complementing whatever services they're offering or whatever they're trying to do. So if it's a trainer who also lifts, then we're getting him more clients because we're getting his content on a larger platform than just his platform. So it's on the Kettlebell Kings page, and we can create workout videos, and we can create a series of YouTube free workouts, and it just kind of never stops once you identify what you want to be. And for us, that was pretty easy. And because we didn't have any credibility on our own, we had to go after that. So I couldn't just say, this kettlebell is good because Chad said it's good. I had to go and find a myriad of different kind of resources to say, okay, this is why this is good, because we've tested it here. These lifters at this club in California currently use it. We have, several clubs in New York. We're inside of, 24-hour fitness and Lifetime. Like, all of these things are just part of continuing to build a community in my mind.
Right. So in order to get in the door, let's take lifetime, right? So in order to get into door, to introduce who you are, to become part of that community, what is that like? You just picking up the phone and making a phone call, right? So like, did you have a process to break through to these people?
Yeah, so like those deals are a lot, a lot tougher than I make it seem, probably. Especially if you're talking about, Lifetime and 24, these bigger gym chains.
Right.
Uh, I would literally, I was responsible specifically for those types of deals, and I would always kind of give myself at least a year and a half kind of lead time on any large B2B deal, just because how long their purchasing cycles are. But it starts with, to me, especially nowadays, with bringing more. So if you're just looking at it from a B2B perspective, I try to bring more than just the product. I don't think any vendor has a product that's so unique, especially when someone's willing to spend $1 million on it. Any gym chain could just as easily go make their own kettlebells in China. And if for $1 million, they could get a very good rate. They'll get just as good as rate as we do, maybe, if not better for a single purchase. But they don't get to bring a community and a brand alliance and an allegiance between two fitness entities. And that's kind of how I look at it. So if we're not always constantly bringing new engagement and new people and new eyeballs to our company, then we're not nearly as valuable to another B2B client. So it's more than just the equipment. And I think that's what's always helped us. And that's always helped me, is I always knew that from a owner to owner, from a entrepreneur to entrepreneur, if I could get that other CEO or the other chief marketing officer, whoever that is, making those decisions to see the brand value of aligning themselves with my brand, that's way more valuable than just the
Absolutely.
purchase up front. And that's what I would go after every time.
Well, awesome. So how do you take what you did with building this community and the process you take, and how do you replicate that for other industries? Let's take wealth management, for example, right? The industry I'm in, or any industry you want. So how do you take what you learned and maybe how you improve today and replicate that to build a community around one's product?
Well, I think when you've been, in the game, let's say like you have for a while, you kind of start realizing who your customers are, and you kind of identify who they are. And for me, it was always about reaching out and really trying to find out who that was. So like an exercise I did was I called every single business owner, or I sent out emails and then had calls with every single business owner in the network of Kettlebell Kings. So, hundreds of thousands of emails, anybody who owns a company, let's jump on a call and just talk. And through that exercise, I learned so much about who the audience was. And that's a specific, test that you can use to, let's say, calibrate messaging. But I learned that there are more than one way to help communities. It's not just the services I offer today. It's also the content that I'm creating, and that's free value that I bring to people. So someone will buy something from me just because of a video they saw last year, or they will make a recommendation because of the content that I'm creating on YouTube, or the videos that I created that they sent to their wife, or whatever that is. And so I really try to create content around building the community and measure that as success, separate from my resources. I mean, separate from my revenue. So I wouldn't even look at like your actual services as something. I would look at, like you're doing the podcast. I would say, well, what type of engagement, what type of topics are we getting, and how do we grow that first? How do we say we know the content we create is growing more engagement? And if it's not doing that, to me, that's where you would start and try to fix that as the initial thing.
Yeah.
With kettlebells, it's a lot more narrowly focused, because
Yeah.
you keep this kettlebell at the centerpiece. With you might have multiple centerpieces. It may be accounting, it may be wealth management, like you say. There's different kind of aspects of it. But once you find it and you're able to generate that content, get a platform for that content where it's being successful, everything becomes easy after that, because we're just reading the people that are actually engaging with it.
Right. So it's figuring out, like you said, trying a bunch of different things. And if something's not working out, pivot, move into another area. And if all of a sudden that starts to gel and you're getting positive feedback, and you're saying just then that's your messaging right now that's working. And that's when you just take that to another level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's just you're gonna keep testing it, and it never stops. I think the thing that I have over most people is I don't look at it like a process that ever stops. So it's, it's an A/B test forever. It's like when you go to practice, you go watch film, you go back to practice, watch film, you go back to practice, you watch film. You just continues to do that on a regular basis.
Right.
And that becomes very easy to me. And you see success pretty quickly. I mean, even if you're saying it takes me a whole year to really get my content dialed in, well, that's nothing in the lifespan of a business. And the fact that you've, taken that year gives you a year gap on everybody else that's trying to get into your space and compete with you. So going through the process of genuinely wanting to create an online community, it humbles you, but it also gives you true value that other people can't necessarily take from you.
When you say it humbles you, why do you say that?
I mean, I take myself for an example. I am probably more of a I'm probably more experienced in athletics and lifting and exercise than most people that ever have purchased from me. But that doesn't make me the expert in what people want in a kettlebell. I'm not the final say so on what is the best product for an audience. I think that is a process that I will outsource, and I will try to figure out how do I benefit the most people. So when it humbles me, I might think something is cool, but if I just me thinking it's cool doesn't mean other people's going to buy it.
Right.
Another a good example would be like print on demand. I remember when print on demand first came out, when it didn't exist. Print companies like Printful and Printify and these kind of you purchase the shirt and then it gets made, or you purchase the apparel and then it gets made. That I was around when that first started. Well, I hated the quality of print on demand. I thought it was terrible. I was like, this is, I'm like, I go to my printer guy, I'm holding up one of my shirts from him, and then I get a print on demand shirt, and I'm like, these things suck. But when I sent them out to people, no one cared. Like literally no one cared. And some owners would be like, well, I still care, so we're not bringing that crap in. And I'm like, well, if they don't care, well, who am I to tell them that, their t-shirts should be 2 points higher than, to meet my standards? Like it's not up to me. And I think that kind of stuff, and just having that open mindedness about trying to really figure out what moves the needle with them, and respecting what moves the needle with them, and not necessarily trying to create a world in which I've envisioned, premeditated world. I'm trying to find, obviously, like the honest, most efficient world that I can find in my niche.
In terms of culture within a company, right? So again, you own the company. So how do you keep a strong culture within your company?
It comes probably easier for me because I played on so many sports teams. One of the biggest lessons I have probably in sports and branding in general, I talk about it in my book, is my high school coach came in and we won state the first year he came in. And the year before we were good, but he came in with new messaging, new branding, a new culture. One thought, one goal, state champs was literally on every single thing that you could see around the entire facility, around the school. So like creating a culture to me comes natural from sports. But I think in general, it's something that's consistent, and it's something that you have to it's kind of like trial by fire as well. So, with Kettlebell Kings, you have an opportunity to say, like, for example, like, this is the culture we want, this is what we're going to create. And then things will come up in which you get to kind of test that. I talk about in the book, again, like one of the big stories was 2 years into the business, we finally got in a warehouse, employees, and we're really gearing up for our first really huge Black Friday. We've purchased more kettlebells than we've ever purchased before. Previous to this, we've had okay Black Fridays, but we know this year, we can make several $100,000, $1 million Black Friday. It's going to change the trajectory of the company. We've had several meetings with employees about how we want to handle this. And obviously this is over a holiday break. So, me, myself, and my partner and I are the only two people that can really pick up the load if the employees don't take it. Well, that weekend comes and our employees decide they're not going to show up. And so it literally was 4 days of my partner and I just sending kettlebells until 2 a.m, go home, wake up, come back, do the same thing over for 4 days. And that was our holiday. And it completely sucked, but it changed the perspective of the company forever. He and I we never questioned each other's commitment again after that. There was never a debate on the culture. Like, it was like, we know we do what we have to do to get it done. And those types of opportunities only present themselves. You don't necessarily get to choose when that happens. And a lot of times, I think sports has taught me that, like, the game is going to give you the opportunity to be to be a legend, to be the big name. You're going to get it in the game. That's the only chance you can get. And that's how I look at creating cultures for businesses. Is if you're trying hard enough, putting yourself in difficult situations, you're going to get a chance to kind of test and create your own culture. You just keep putting yourself out there.
Right. So within your company, employees, you're saying will see the work you put in, the way you carry yourself, and that you're saying establishes culture within a company.
Yeah, I think I think you have to write it down, right? I think you have to tell people and have meetings and, regularly discuss it, but it doesn't sink in until you actually go through things. I think you have to be willing to put people in situations where they win or lose and have a chance to kind of stress test themselves. That's when culture is really made in my mind. Like,
Yeah.
if everything's just going smooth, you don't have a culture. People are just there collecting a check. There's no real culture. But when things get rough and rocky and tough, and you have to make it through difficult situations and depend on one another and things like that, to me, that's when you really kind of foster some type of camaraderie that can really bring everyone together into agreeing on a culture.
So, so Chad, I want to shift to personal financial planning, right? And money. So you're running a business, your clients, people you speak with, founders running a business, and all of us have profits at the end of the day, right? And some of the decisions that we have to make, and I'm wondering how you always thought about this, and even speaking to some of your clients. So, keep it simple. You have a dollar of profit. Do you take that full dollar and put it back into the business, right? Or do you take some chips off the table and invest personally to grow? So I look at it like, here's your business and here's your personal nest egg, which can be retirement accounts, non-retirement accounts, real estate, maybe other businesses, private businesses, right? So these are investments that you make here, right? And both are going to grow over time. But the big question that I wonder your thought process on, of that dollar, do you recommend you reinvest the full amount back into a business because that normally is the highest return on investment? Or you take some chips off the table, and if so, what percent? How do you think about money, personal finance, et cetera?
I mean, I think, obviously when you're different ages, you can afford to take different risks. I'll start there. This is not kind of universal for every age. Um, and when you're younger and you're first starting, I think you take every dollar and put it
I
back into
agree.
business. I think it's hard not to, right? Like, I think
Love that. I agree.
if you're not putting all your chips, if you're not willing to go all in, it's gonna be hard to really get to that point. And I think going all in gives you a different level of commitment to things especially when you're first starting off and you're younger. But as you mature and as you kind of have experience, I think you should be allocating, percentages of that dollar to something else. Um, One of the things we did was, 4 or 5 years in, I talked about us not being able to pay ourselves for the first 5 years. Well, we started another company. So we started Kettlebell Kings was one company, and we started another fitness company that could do everything else. So we were allocating resources from one company to kind of diversify our fitness portfolio and bring in more products. So we knew if we could sell kettlebells over here, then it wouldn't be too hard to sell dumbbells over there. And that's kind of the most basic way to look at it. But we could continue to expand off of what we had learned without a significant learning curve because it was, similar, let's say a similar process in order to sell those types of products. But, even now, and I think most entrepreneurs, they struggle with 401k and retirement. Like, our retirement in our eyes is, our next big idea. Like, that's the retirement. Like, why would we need retirement when we're going to blow up? Like, so, I think there is some self-awareness once you start getting older and, even hiring someone like yourself to kind of put those things into perspective, give
Right.
you a competitive analysis of what other people are doing, where they've seen success. Because,
Yeah.
I am admittedly the completely, like, yeah, let's put it all in. We're going to make some more money tomorrow. Let's put it all in. And my accountant would say, hey, man, you need to make sure at least you're saving something for the IRS. And I'll say, okay, well, take that out and then put everything else in. So I think it is a balance. And as you get older and more experience, you have more ability to bring in resources and people who have expertise. And that's what I try to do. Like, I don't consider myself like a personal financial advisor to anyone. I would never give someone that type of advice. I would say you need to go find someone that you can trust and have those honest conversations and make sure that you're taking that in consideration with your decisions.
Yeah, so like my book Make Work Optional, which is off the corner of my shoulder here, is the idea is for all of us, right, is to kind of get to the point where you have complete financial freedom, right? So you can still be an entrepreneur, do all the things you have to do, but you kind of set some chips over here where you set yourself up that if something didn't work out with your business or whatever it may be, that you're still set,
Yeah.
right? And that piece over here is it offers stability to the family and security to the family and obviously yourself. Because the risks that any founder is exposed to. So like, for example, like my business of the wealth management in general is a time tested, mature business model, right? So like getting involved with kettlebells when you initially did, there's a lot of risk to that. You're purchasing the product from China and then bringing it here and hoping, building a community around it. So I think there's also different level of risk depending on your business in as well. So there's a lot to think about, but a lot of it does come down to, I think the personality of the actual founder themselves, right? Like you said, you'd go all in, let's do it. You got a ton of confidence, which is really terrific because the reality is that any money you reinvest in a business, you're going to get the highest rates of return because of the tax deductibility of that, number one, and that's tremendous, right? Because if you take that dollar and you took the full dollar and put it in your account, well, that dollar is really going to be probably 60 cents because of taxes. So it's not even a dollar. But if you take that full dollar and reinvest it in your business, well, you just saved yourself tons of taxes and you're going to get a return on that dollar. So, I mean, we're talking about returns on investment capital of like north of like 20%, right? Well, depending on your business and how you can grow money. So there's really, it's an interesting subject. And I want to really get in the minds of founders more and more and more to get their feedback on that. And a lot of it, like you just said too, it's going to depend. If I'm talking to a 55-year-old founder, it's going to be different than talking to a 39-year-old founder. So it's an interesting subject. I'm pretty passionate about it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, one of the areas I think it kind of is a niche right now that I work in actually with consulting is people who have businesses that are not necessarily digital businesses. And if you're like 55, 60, 65, 70, these types of age groups, you could have started your business. And if you've had a business for a while, you did start your business pre-social media and pre-digital age of anything, really. It could even be technically almost pre-internet. But I think there is a whole community of people who are looking to retire and automate their processes that they've created, but they've made themselves an essential piece of their manual business, if that makes sense. And one of the areas I help people with, I work with a construction company where I'm literally helping them digitize and automate every single one of their processes, create some type of community. You have, thousands of clients that you've helped over a 30-year period,
Right.
but you've never really turned that into a digital community and you never really generated content for these people before. And I think there's a whole generation of businesses that are going to be looking to retire in the next, 5 to 10 years that either they have to digitize and automate their business to be a modern business, or that business is not going to exist anymore without them.
Right. So what you mean by that specifically, in other words, the companies, like you just said, they have thousands of customers. Some of them are so old school. The idea of creating a video is like so,
Yeah, exactly.
something the last thing they're thinking about, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that, going forward as we think about the world, whether you like it or you don't like it, and believe me, it's not easy. I create video content all the time, and there's a lot involved with it. It takes time, things like that. But what you're saying is if you're not involved like that in a company, no matter what your company is, because your end customer, client, patient, they're going to search on the internet and YouTube. And if you don't have a presence versus your competitor that does, that's probably going to be a problem. Is that what we're saying?
1,000%. And especially if you're trying to acquire new customers in the future. So,
Right.
the people that are being born now, the people that are in junior high, high school now, they don't understand pre-social media. So if you don't have a social presence, you are looked at as less credible, period. There's no middle ground for that. There's no such thing as, well, I don't need to have one like that. That was technically 20 years ago, but it's definitely today. And there's a lot of people, especially in that generation, where they are an essential piece of the business. They have never really had a chance to utilize the modern tools that we have available to automate processes. And if you were an essential piece of your business and then you retire and you don't have this digital setup in place or some type of process in place, the business doesn't have the energy or the new incoming revenue from anywhere to succeed anymore. And I think not think I know, because I'm from a small town in Texas. There's tons of businesses all over Texas that are like that, especially from small towns who are regional, geographically local businesses that never really had to build those types of huge networks of digital networks. And now you're looking at kind of having to compete with Amazon and Walmart and pretty much any other company that would
Right.
be on the internet.
Right. When it comes to digital, what would you, from your experience, what do you think is the most important digital process to implement for a business? The top two or three?
I think it depends on the business for sure, but whatever you can automate, I think a lot of times people are just manually doing things, then slowing the process down. So, I look at every business as it has to scale, it has to grow. Any business that's stagnant is dying to me. So I'm always trying to scale a business and use as many digital tools to do that. Even if you're just talking about, from an accounting perspective, like if you don't have like even a basic understanding of your cash flow, and if you're not using whether it's QuickBooks or, you can go as far as using NetSuite, whatever that is.
Right.
If you're not able to do that on a regular basis and have some type of snapshot assessment of where you are and where you need to go, then you can't improve. And so what I'm always trying to do is get something in place that we can have a general consensus of what data we're reading, and then we can make real harsh decisions on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, whatever that is. And a lot of companies, especially if you're an older company like that, they're not even doing that at all. And, they may look at it on the tax returns at the end of the year, but I'm trying to look at that on the actions we took from the previous 30 days, the actions we took last week. Right. And those are the types of things that I try to get in place as fast as possible.
Oh, that's good. It's good. So to finish off, as as quickly as we can, right? So fitness, it seems like fitness and health is a big part of your life. It's a big part of my life as well, right? Always like to learn from other people. Let's start with supplements. What are the top supplements that you would recommend somebody take?
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that, and I did mention that I own a supplement company, but I'm not even huge on supplements myself. But if I had to recommend supplements, I think the key thing is to try to make sure you know what you're taking. I think trying to source high quality products in today's modern food chain is just, it's crazy to the things you have to dodge and kind of get around. So finding a company you trust, finding a product that is trying to be made clean, healthy, organic is a good thing, but more just the least amount of processed product that you can have. But things like just, if you're working out all the time, protein is going to be key for you, especially for women. If you're trying to start a new workout regimen, getting sore all the time, and that can deter you from not working out enough or not being as efficient as you can. So different things like that. I'd recommend protein, and then any types of kind of rest aids. I like those as well. So like things that are calming to you, soothing, calming, whether that's teas, salves,
what else? I'm sorry, teas. What else?
Teas or like salves. So, some of the things like I sell Life Grows Green, we sell like hemp-based salves that are, we have like a sports version that has like menthol in it that's more like an icy hot. And then you also have just a more like a CBD version that's going to give you more kind of soothing effects. And so to me, it's all about maintaining the recovery process and being able to get back to your workout as fast as possible. And that usually is kind of protein and then something to help you sleep better and sleep more comfortably.
What's your view on cold plunges?
I mean, I think it's a thing. I think you can do it. Do I think it's like going to change your life and revolutionize your life in some way? I think there is a lot of gimmick to it, but I think it works for some people, and some of those things for me, I'm really big on like the placebo effect, right? Like if you're putting yourself in a situation where you're uncomfortable and challenging yourself to overcome something on a regular basis,
Right.
you're gonna feel better and you're gonna
Yeah.
actually be stronger and tougher. So it,
You're
it, it
right.
doesn't matter what that is. Like you could be plunging yourself into a bucket of crickets that because you're afraid of crickets. Whatever fear you've overcome, now
Yeah.
you're a better person. You feel stronger. So I think it's a lot of that with cold plunging, but there's new studies coming out on it every single day. So I wouldn't discredit it for sure.
I
But
tell
I
you,
think
I tell you, I do it, and
yeah,
it's a game changer.
yeah. No, I was gonna say I know people who swear by it, and
Yeah,
then I know people who are like, come on, man, you did cold plunges before. Like we did cold plunges.
I know, I know.
This was in
College.
2000, right? So and now all of a sudden it's like everyone has to get a cold plunge. Like,
I
yeah,
know, I
guys, like
know,
this is
I
not
know.
new. So I'm
I,
probably a little biased when it comes to it, but no, I do think things like anything like that to me it works, and that's what I'm saying. Like I'm the type of person where I don't care what it is that you're doing. If you're challenging yourself to do something more difficult and you get a positive benefit, whether that's mental, physical, spiritual, whatever that is, like
yeah,
who am I to stop you from doing it? Like,
right.
yes, please keep doing that. Make yourself the best person you can be. And that's how I look at cold plunges or, people who want to do hot yoga, whatever it is. It's like all of these things are just tools that I think we can make ourselves into better people.
Chad, this was awesome. It was great talking to you. You have an abundance of knowledge. Congratulations on all your success, and thank you for your perspectives today and insights. I'm sure my audience is going to find a lot of value to it. So, thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me on. It was very nice meeting you.
All right, likewise.